Broadcasting from the Symphony Studios in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the High Tech Women Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Listen in as we speak with and learn from inspiring women who have stepped up and stepped into careers in technology and construction. Now, here are your hosts. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the High Tech Women Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. I am your host today, Katie Galley, and in the Symphony studio with me, I have chairwoman and co-founder of Funnel Leasing, Caren Maio. How are you doing, Caren?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your journey with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We talked a little bit about it. I know you're in a frigid New York right now. Are you working from your home or where are you?
Currently visiting my folks.
Cool.
Not too far away from our native New Jersey, as we discussed, which has been nice to get a little extra space. But been in New York, as I told you, for many years. And the Northeast is it's an interesting place to be right now with the frigid weather we've been having.
Yes,
for sure.
Interesting to say the least.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Caren, just to get to know your background a little bit, can you walk us through your professional journey and how you specifically found yourself in the tech industry, and then of course leading into the discovery of funnel leasing?
For sure. Yeah. So, started really my journey in New York City. I went to college there, fell in love with the city, and then started working for obviously larger, very well-known organizations, first being Nike out of their satellite office in New York.
Wow.
Which was such an incredible experience. Talk about a brand. Then worked at the Wall Street Journal. I did sales for them. Always, though, had this weird fascination with real estate. So I was that weirdo whenever a friend was looking for an apartment and going through that entire experience, I'd raise my hand and say, I'll help. And they're like, why? The process was awful. Why would you do that to yourself? But I was so fascinated with real estate. I always knew I wanted to start my own business. I met my co-founder, and we just started talking about, man, like this process is so painful. It's not like any other process in our lives, right? Technology plays a big role, right, in what we do, right? When you think about Amazon, Uber, OpenTable, right? Anything else, we can have seamless experiences in other aspects of our lives, yet something so personal, which is looking for our next home, it just has a ton of friction around it, right? It's so stressful. It's really painful. Why is that? So that was sort of the very, very beginning part of our journey towards funnel.
I love that. And I mean, it's true, really thinking about that personalization of it and how, you're looking for your next home. When you think about it that way, that is truly, you should have that same ease of access as these other technologies offer. And so, Caren, before you even just got into this industry, found this love of real estate in kind of an odd way, was there maybe something from your childhood or even at that time that signified to you wanted to go out on your own, be an entrepreneur, start your own business?
Oh, for sure. Well, I feel like just even watching my father's an entrepreneur, my uncles, watching them start their business. It was almost just like first nature, or second nature rather. This is what you do, right? It's just like, you go out into the world and you create and you build. So I grew up with that being the norm. So it was sort of ingrained in me from the beginning. I love to build. I love to just kind of tinker and discover new things. So, even in college, right, I was toying with the idea of starting something, made an agreement with my parents that I'd stay in college and I'd graduate and I'd get a background in something. And my father suggested sales because, in his words, I love to talk. So he said, go learn on someone else's dime. If you still have this crazy idea that you want to start your own business, your mother and I will emotionally support you in that journey. And he was very clear to mention emotional support, not financial support. So, those conversations were being had years before we started the business. But I always knew that I wanted to build and create. I just didn't know what. And, after experiencing the pain of renting an apartment again and again, having lived in New York, I think almost 10 years before we started the business,
Wow.
it felt very personal
Yeah.
and it felt like a problem worth solving.
Man. And so then looking into that, I mean, of course, New York, the market that it is, I mean, I would imagine renting an apartment is challenging in and of itself, just finding a location and really discovering where you want your next home to be. So then at that time, when you met your co-founder and really started to dive in the problem that you guys wanted to solve, what did you aim to have Funnel Leasing do? What was its initial mission? And is it still that today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'd say the mission of the business hasn't fundamentally changed. The path to get there has changed dramatically over the years, right? You could argue it was a pivot and a half, two pivots, whatever, but the company had to constantly evolve, and it continues to evolve to further that mission. The mission was really taking a process that was historically very painful and leveraging technology to make that process delightful and seamless and frictionless, right? So leveraging technology in order to deliver that modern leasing experience that, frankly, as consumers today, we expect, right? When you think about the way you can make a restaurant reservation or place an order for food or book a car, right? It's just seamless. It just works.
Right.
And as we got closer to the industry and, we spent time, we initially launched a consumer-facing product, but really used that product as a beachhead to learn more about the overall industry. So we spent a lot of time in the early days just being curious, talking to as many folks in the industry as we possibly could. So we were very passionate about the renter problem, but started to talk to owners and operators of apartment communities and said, hey, talk to us about your workflow. What software, what technology do you use? And what we found was there was a lot of pain for them, right? It wasn't that they didn't want to deliver a great experience. They didn't have the software or the technology to do it. So it was sort of a light bulb moment where we said, man, if we can deliver technology to the businesses, right, the real estate professionals and owners, and give them software so they can not only make their operations much more efficient, but they can deliver a really fantastic experience on the front end to apartment hunters, everyone wins. So we always had that sort of renter-centric mindset, but realized that building software for the industry was the right way to ultimately realize that vision.
Wow.
So it was great. We, started in New York City, which is our backyard. And New York City is a very unique market. It's the largest rental market in the country, but like I said, also the most unique. And we started by just meeting with those customers and saying, okay, talk to us about your workflow. And we shadowed them. And we spent a lot of time there to really understand what the true pain points were and built out a product for New York, built up tremendous market share. We were very, very fortunate. And then a few years ago, we said, okay, what's next? And what was next was really going wider and approaching the national audience and building out the product to do that. So, we were able to take the business from just a couple of us out of my apartment to now nearly 60 nationwide and working with owners, not only in New York, but nationally. And it's just been an amazing journey.
Man, I bet. I mean, having it start, it's so small in your own apartment and then truly seeing it, that proof of concept just grow into what it could be and what it was capable of. And Sue, Caren, it's interesting. I mean, really diving into that, the technology side of it and how you can't possibly predict what technology is going to be like even tomorrow and a year from now. And so with what you were doing, how did you, I guess, navigate that, try and staying ahead of the technological demands or just kind of in the years as your company grew?
It's a great question. I think, a big part of it was staying close to our customers, right? And also just looking at broader market trends, right? So, we often talk about the impact software technology has had on the hospitality space or the healthcare space or even automotive. And a lot of the problems we're trying to solve for in real estate have already been solved in some of those industries, right? So we looked very closely at innovation in industries that we respected. And we said, okay, well, how can we take more of a hospitality driven approach to real estate? Can we learn from companies that are in maybe, you're solving similar problems in different industries and take the latest and greatest and make it speak real estate.
Yeah.
So I'd say really just listening, talking to customers, sharing ideas, and looking towards other just innovative companies that have solved similar problems has really been very, very impactful for us.
Yeah. I mean, keeping your ear to the ground, really paying attention to what's going on around you and not being so narrowly focused on, I want to achieve this exact goal. But like you said, I mean, you had this vision of what you wanted it to be, but the path it ultimately took was not what you envisioned. And so being willing to kind of accept that and walk down that path.
100%. You have to be nimble and you have to be open, right? Like, and it's a careful balance, right? Because once you have conviction in something, you have to be focused and try to eliminate as many distractions as possible to really get things done, right? Especially as a small company. But you can't be so married to one path or one specific strategy that you close yourself off to other opportunities, other paths. So it's a delicate balance, but it's one we've been able to strike, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And Caren, now for you, I mean, having grown the company and starting off as co-founder and really just diving in and being integral in the growth and expansion, and then now making the shift, the transition into being chairwoman. How did you navigate that? How have you, yeah, just kind of felt through that whole transitional process of moving from kind of a more integrated role into this, I guess, overarching chairwoman role?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first and foremost, we have an outstanding team, so that makes it just so much easier, right? Like
Right.
early days when I think about how we started, right? We were a lean team, right? So as a founder, particularly in our case, right? I was doing sales, onboarding, customer service, legal, janitorial if needed, right? You sweep the floors, you do whatever you need to make your business successful. Then as the company started to grow, we earned the right to bring on people who were specialists and people who were amazing at what they did, right? Dedicated sales folks and onboarding folks. And we're very fortunate we had some amazing, amazing people through and through join us and help grow the company. But there was a time where you couldn't, as a founder, you couldn't step away from the business for a second without something breaking. It was like whack-a-mole, right? You get one thing down and three more pop up. So, I just felt like, to be able to make this transition, I felt like I was making it from such a place of privilege that we were able to build something that could survive beyond any one person, right? And it was something that was bigger than any one of us. So, from a team perspective, I felt like we had just such a rock star leadership team and frankly, everyone within the organization, they were just so capable where it finally made sense to do so. And obviously a very supportive board and investors. Personally speaking, I love the early stage, right? And we were able to work out a lot. And now the business is not in that place. And I'm just so thrilled about it, right? It's what you dream of as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that. And it goes into really putting the needs of the business ahead of your own, because I would imagine it was challenging to want to step away at that time and to transition into the chairwoman role. But two, it's navigating, knowing, like you said, I mean, being willing to walk down that path and humbling yourself to that. And you said putting the right team in place to make that transition successful. So it's leaving a legacy, I guess that matters. It's outside of yourself, knowing what you want it to become, and then creating a self-sustaining entity so that it can live on and that people can come in and really be impacted and impacted as well.
100%. I spent a lot of time talking to our team, both past and current. And I believe this will carry on into the future where, my goal for everyone was to look back, whether it was 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, and say, holy crap, I helped build that.
Mm-hmm.
And have this sense of ownership and pride. And knowing that it was bigger than any one person, myself included, it's just the best feeling in the world. And to see that come to fruition, when I think about how the business started, literally out of my apartment, it's just the best feeling.
Man, I bet. I mean, just being able to reflect back and really appreciate that. And so, Caren, now having walked this whole journey, one as an entrepreneur, a founder, a woman in tech, what piece of advice would you offer to another young woman wanting to start her own business or wanting to enter into the tech space or start an app, whatever that would be? What piece of advice would you have to offer?
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessarily gender specific, but the advice that I offer any founder or anyone who is thinking about starting a business, um, I tell them to embrace the roller coaster because there are ups and downs like you wouldn't believe. But to really start a business when there's nothing else you could be doing but that.
Mm.
So when I think about, when we decided to start Funnel, it's previously called Nestio, when we started Nestio, it was like this ache. Like it was, I had to do it. I just had to. I felt like, the product that we ultimately have built, it needed to exist. And, and I sort of cross that against the embracing the roller coaster piece, because it's so important that you're all in, because you will be tested. You will have lows that you never even thought you could experience. You will have highs that are the greatest of highs. And sometimes they'll even happen in the same day. And, to be able to embrace that and really, play for the long game, which is very much what startups are. If you're lucky, right? You're in it for a long time. You need to go in with that mindset of, this is why I'm doing this. I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I'm excited about who I'm building this with, because it's going to be really, really difficult. And probably the third thing I'd add is being comfortable asking for help, because you're not alone.
Yeah. And that's a hard piece, but it goes back to the humbling yourself, right? And surrounding yourself with the people who can help you. It's that willingness to step out and ask the questions that you might think they sound dumb, but you have to put yourself out there. You have to, in whatever capacity that looks like.
100%. Being vulnerable is it's very difficult to do, but it's so important. In my moments of vulnerability, I've been able to, whether it's make new friends or go deeper with ones I've had, it's scary, but it's super rewarding when you do it.
Love it. I love it. Well, Caren, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and share your story. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, learn more about you, or learn more about funnel leasing, where might they do that?
100%. So if they would like to learn more about funnel leasing, they can check out funnelleasing.com. If they would like to learn more about me or get in touch, my LinkedIn profile is probably the best way to get in touch. Just LinkedIn message me. It's Caren Maio, Caren with a C, Maio with an I, because my parents like to make things difficult. But but feel free to LinkedIn message me at any point.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. To learn more about Symphony, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube at Symphony Technology Solutions, and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Never forget that wherever your pursuits take you, cling to the truth that you are absolutely made for a time such as this. See you on our next episode.